Well, hello, Chaos fans, P1 listeners. As we were just talking about that, we'll get into that in just a minute. But welcome to Hello Chaos. This is a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP, for work in progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities through hyperlocal online platforms designed to inform, inspire, and create connections to help founders along their journey. Orange Whip is part storyteller, part how to guide, and part navigator. We are the megaphone for founders telling real, raw, and honest stories, and why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. My name is Jennifer Sutton, aka JJ. It's my nickname. I am the founder of Orange Whip and your podcast host today. We record live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and publish on all podcast platforms on the following Sunday. So you can find us anywhere. So on our podcast today, we're welcoming Skip Wilson, founder of Draft Ad Technologies. Welcome, Skip.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be
You're
here.
welcome. And Skip, this is our 53rd podcast.
Sweet.
So, we're making it real.
That's a big deal. Seth Godin says any podcast that makes it past 50 episodes, I mean, that's quite an accomplishment.
It is. I was looking at a stat of like the average podcast frequency is like 12 or 16. Yeah. I mean, it's a low number. So yeah, the fact that we've hit that benchmark, we're doing great. Now you and I go way back. So everyone, all of our listeners and our viewers, you and I go way back. iHeart days.
Yeah.
I want to say we've known each other for 15 plus years.
Yes.
And
maybe even longer than that. It's hard to say if we bumped into each other when I was freelancing, but
yeah,
or Jackson, so probably.
I know. Yeah, you were, but you've always been on, the media side of the table, and I was always on the buyer side. So we can get into that, and and then you left and at iHeart after many years and started your own company.
Yeah.
But man, did you figure out a solution to buyers like me out there? So just talk about, Draft Ad Technologies and why you founded that. What why that solution? What was that journey like?
Well, so it really started from decades of answering two questions, or like two things that I hated saying all the time, which I hated the phrase. I hated saying all the time, like, oh, well, after like month 3 or so, it'll start getting better. Like I hated having to say that. There's some truth to that, but I'll talk about that. But I also hated having to answer the question of like, oh, well, what kind of results can we expect? Right. That's like a very reasonable question, right? Like if I'm talking to a financial advisor or something else, it's like they can say, okay, well, about a 7% annual return or whatever.
Right.
Like in the marketing world, there was just like, it's just sort of a wild guess. And so I didn't like not having solutions to that. And then the 3-month thing, like I just hated it. It only gets better after 3 months if things are being tweaked and changed. Right.
Like, well, you only control so much. Yeah. So I'm going to break down, for people that aren't in media, because here's the thing I've recognized, Skip. Not a lot of people know what we do, like what our backgrounds are, from a media planning and buying perspective. You were the one that, I would go to. You would sell me those ad placements, those, I call it time, air, and space.
Yeah.
That I always say, the in the ad agency, that's where my background is, and working with, big brands and having, millions of dollars of that I was responsible for. So you talk about like your biggest frustration of me coming to you going, is this really going to work? What should we expect? What's the return? Is this the best place for my, for my outlet? I mean, those are things that as a media buyer and planner, that's what we're trying to figure out too, right?
Right.
Client comes to you and they say, hey, here's, I think one of my biggest clients in I was managing a $40 million account
Right.
like where to place that, or in a spot market of you've got $2 million, and you're buying in 3 markets. Um, they're putting a lot of pressure on them, in an agency, the media department of, are you, are
Because it's
these the,
reasonable. Normally, when you spend $40 million, you have some idea of what
you
you're
you
buying.
hope you get some kind of return on ad investment. And
Right.
it was never, and it was when I entered into the agency world in that media space, um, it was never the pressure of the creative department. It was always like it was me having to stand up, and it was the client going, well, I didn't see sales. I didn't see the phone ring, or I didn't see butts and seats.
Right.
Jennifer, you tell me why you chose this. And I'm like, well, shit, I didn't even see, like, one of the first agency, I'm like, I didn't even see the ad, like, until I got it an hour before I had to go send it off to the media outlet. And
Right.
had I been a part of that conversation, I could have told you that message is never going to resonate with that audience,
Right.
and that message is never going to um, create impact on that media outlet. So, it's the media message.
And sometimes it's the opposite. Like with mid to small level clients, a lot of times their expectations
Oh,
are what's kind of off, right?
that's
It's
right. Or it's like, I have $50 a day, or I have $1,000 budget. I should see 10x return
right,
for that
exactly.
money. And so, yeah, but that was all. So I became more vocal in, how do I make sure that I am figuring out which outlet is the best, which, have my science down.
Right.
Um, and then it became, once it got easier as the media planning kind of all with all the tools, then it became, well, yeah, we saw results, and you and I can, we have some past clients that, we can attest to this, but well, I saw a rise in sales, or I saw butts and seats, or I saw return, but
Right.
tell me where that return came from. So the attributable
Right.
of, and it's like, well, you made money. Like, does it really matter? No,
Right.
no, I need to know for for future planning. So,
Yeah, and there's always debates as to whether it should be last click attribution or like, because I mean, they click the
or
ad.
like 7 days after, or 30 days after, and what is that attributable, window? Um, so, I mean, there's so much science around media planning, and you're right. Like you said, you and I get those same questions coming downstream from clients, and or me coming to you going, oh my gosh, is this gonna, do we have enough science to know that we're gonna see a return? Are we gonna hit benchmark? Are we gonna go above benchmark?
Exactly.
Um,
And
and
that really is like that, I would say, is the more impetus like behind like the actual starting of the company and everything else, is that there is like a landing page should convert between 3 to 5%. Like that's a hard number. Like
yep,
it's, you know, if
there's
they
enough data out there that
exactly.
we have said, if you're in this industry, in this category,
Yep.
this is what a landing page should do. This is what a banner ad should do. And you have all that.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really was not, it really, finding all that information and just bringing it all into one place, it kind of blew my mind that like it didn't already exist, but there really was no sort of single place where you could go and sort of do your planning with the return on ad spend and those types of things, sort of the end in mind. There was all these tools where like you could calculate like, okay, you can get approximately this many clicks or something like that, but then there was nothing that really brought everything together, and so
Right.
that's what we
Because
built.
so did what is it, the DMA, does it did they not have all of those out? Because I know you guys went way deep into all the benchmarks, but
Yeah.
so I was surprised that there wasn't like one industry that was, or association for the for the media category
Yeah.
of um
Well, what's funny is that there are so many like there was the information kind of lived in two buckets. Like either it would be like you're looking at using like radio, for example, like
Right.
if you're looking at radio stats that are based on numbers from the RAB, the Radio Advertising Bureau, it's like, well, how accurate is that information? Because it's you're leaning on numbers and stats from like that own industry, that same
Right.
industry, right? And so like there was those types of numbers where it's like, is that actually true information? Or the other end of the spectrum, like you were looking at competitive information. In other words, you'd be looking at like, what is the the out of home association say about like what a radio campaign should be, which is almost skewed the opposite direction. So
Right.
it's the
And TV and, and the whole digital spaces of like, you got the programmatic tools all have these different, stats. It's
exactly.
like, which one do you trust?
Exactly. And so, but there, so it was really about mixing sort of those things together,
Hmm.
combining sources, and then bringing it all into one place so that you're able to say, okay, if I'm, and then also too, just in real time, I mean, just some basic arithmetic of like, okay, if I put in a Facebook campaign to this at the average Facebook cost per click, what is that likely to convert at? Because we know
Okay.
Facebook's going to convert at like more like 3% as opposed to, 9% or whatever. I'm making up
Right.
numbers, but yeah. So just knowing all of that, and so just building that out. But then also too, that was how it started anyway.
Yeah.
That's it. That
So
was the
you were like, there's got to be a need. If that was something you wanted and you saw the endless questions over 20 years.
yeah, exactly. The same 4 or 5 questions being just asked repeatedly for 20 years, right?
Right.
But,
You're right. It is the same ones over and over again.
right. Where I'm like, I can't be the only one that's like that has no answer to this. And so, so yeah, that was the starting idea
Okay.
was building out exactly that platform so that you can say with like just like a financial planner would give me X amount of dollars, you should expect this kind of return.
Okay. So more of a predictive benchmarking kind of tool.
Exactly.
Is that what? Okay. And so when you left, that was like, okay, this is the problem I'm solving. And then were you the one that was building it? Did you have to find a team? Like, what was that
Yeah.
whole like creation of the company?
Yeah, so I had to found the team. I got like very basic coding knowledge, but like not enough to like build something that's like workable and usable. And so, and so yeah, no, that was the first step, was building a team. And
Okay.
I will say that was the thing that, like, because I'd managed teams before, right? Like
Right.
I had several,
You had a lot of,
and I was thinking, well, I've managed teams. I've even, and even was over the P&L of my department and the profit and loss of my department. So I was like, I would have guessed if you'd asked me like, what's different when it's your own company, like versus the other, I'd been like, nothing. It's building a team and managing profit and loss. But I was wrong. Like there was still like, even with that experience, like it was quite a learning curve. Like building your own team is you realize, oh wait, I can't recruit with the same power that I had before. And those types of things. It's like things that I wasn't expecting to be different, basically.
did you start the company under with your own investment, or did you take this idea like I'm gonna call it a paper napkin idea to investors? Because I know you have like a board and all
Yeah.
that, but how did that process work?
It all started originally with me. I mean, we had a working prototype like based off of my napkin and my own my own finances. I mean, we went overseas for like the coding and stuff, and thankfully I had enough to like build like frameworks.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wanted to do this, and then so mostly it was in the early days was having to outsource just to make things look better,
Right.
make the user experience better and stuff.
You were more the architect,
Exactly.
the designer. Yeah.
For this spent time, I mean, keep in mind that even though like the reason we had such success like at launch, it's because it was kind of a company that I was like sort of building nights and weekends for like 5 years, right? Like,
Okay.
this is like what I was doing instead of playing golf, was like working on this.
You're like, I've got to find
Yeah,
the solution to that.
exactly.
So how did when you got an investor, was it more of your prototype was done and the coding was done and you're like, okay, for me to really like make this an actual company and make, to go to the next level, I need X investment,
Right.
or like, what was that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like at that point, we had more or less the basics of what would be a company. I just needed, we just needed to build out the team and be able to
Okay.
devote the time to it.
Is that what the investment went to, was more labor and
Yeah, right.
staff? Okay.
Exactly.
And then and so this has been two years since you launched? When
Yeah,
did you launch?
we're in our second year. Yeah, we launched in February of last year was our official launch.
Okay. Whoa. You've
Yeah,
come a long way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and your name. So describe the name, and because there's a it's an abbreviation. So
Well, and
uh,
our name is sort of has morphed,
I,
which kind of follows the change of the company as a whole. Like at first, we were all focused in on this tool that we built, this what we call dynamic response advertisement forecasting technology or draft technology. And because our whole idea was like, oh well, we've built this cool thing, we'll just go out there and sell this thing as a SaaS, as a software as a service. And that was the original idea. So like the branding was all around that, the messaging was all around that. But then we realized, wait a second, we're trying to sell stuff to one of the most cash strapped industries like ever, like ad agencies, PR companies, those types of things run on fairly thin-ish margins, and also don't have like, you just don't have like a lot of times there's float, right? Like you get the
right.
invoice before your clients paid for it, and those
Yeah,
types of
like 90 days.
yeah, right,
Between
exactly.
90 and 120 days float.
Not that you can
For
relate to any of that or
yeah,
anything,
exactly.
but so in other words, we're trying to sell like to an industry that was like, no, I don't have
It,
money for this,
but
right?
but even if they, I mean, there a lot of these agencies, they're already investing in the Nielsen date, the
Correct.
books. They're investing in media. I mean, those media tools. I mean, like Smart Plus and all that. Those are like 20 grand, sometimes 50 grand a year. And then you look at the data between Scarborough, MRI, and the Nielsen data, and then the digital data. I mean, sometimes agencies are spending six figures plus
Just to
on
have
just
access.
managing media.
Yeah, exactly.
So they know there's no guesses, right?
Right.
So but I'm like, so it makes sense to go after, those agencies, because you're bringing one more tool to take the guesswork out. And ultimately you could lose the other data
Yeah,
if
exactly.
if you
Yeah,
wanted to. I mean,
'cause we're paying for it too. So like, there's
right.
no reason for sort of double payment and all that stuff. Um, but so yeah, that was sort of the biggest, that was one of the biggest changes is our name
Your
changing
pivot. Okay.
from focusing in on just licensing that technology as a piece, because we had so many requests for, well, can you guys just like do that? So in other words,
So
we were selling this thing that allows, just for listeners' sake, our tool basically allows you to be able to plug in. I've got 10 grand a month in budget. What kind of response how many leads can I expect to generate?
right. How many conversions I can get if I place on Facebook versus if I do an out of home, or if I do, I mean, it's because it's both traditional and
Correct.
digital. Um,
And so that was the original idea, but then we got in so many like situations where we had someone be like, can you guys just do this
just
for us?
you
Yeah,
built a great plan. Now just execute
do
it.
it. Yeah, right, exactly. And so that was a big pivot for us, was realizing like, oh well, that's actually like a much bigger opportunity, and it's the same team, right? Like I'd already pulled away, like I already had sort of built like, David and Nina and like some folks that are great at managing campaigns. I'd
Right.
pulled them in so that they could analyze campaigns and planning and all of that stuff. And um, and then I was like, wait, we could just have them execute it. So I mean,
Right.
it ended up being an easy and somewhat obvious pivot like afterwards,
Mm,
but was just, I don't know. It's only obvious after something happens, right?
right. Yeah. I mean, so you started the company last February, so you're in year two. When did you realize the pivot? Was it like 6 months in, or was it just
Yeah.
like a few months ago?
No, it was August-ish of last.
Okay. And then I know another category that you guys were talking about going after too was like the media companies. you
Yeah,
know, the radio, the TV, you know,
exactly.
because they're all selling everything. You know, you go to a radio station, they'll sell you outdoor,
Yeah.
they'll sell
Well,
you digital, they'll sell you Facebook.
exactly. I mean, we're living in a world of consolidate, like partner consolidation and all of that. So,
Exactly.
um, so rather than having 20 different partners, so if you are a billboard company and you've got 5 or 6 different places you're buying stuff from, you've got your PPC vendor and you've got your
Right.
programmatic vendor and you've got your, um, you know, over the top television provider, like,
That's right. I mean, as an agency, we deal with hundreds and hundreds of media,
exactly.
media companies, analyzing and scrutinizing, their offerings. So, yeah, I can see where it's you could be a white label source for those media companies.
Correct.
Um,
And even places, even other industries entirely. Like we have a point of sales company that is doing point of sales for, and they're already in businesses right all the time, and they're like, well, we could just start offering the marketing and advertising piece of it. So it's kind of a world where, like, if they were trying to do it themselves, that'd be, I think, a terrible idea. Thankfully, moving out us, but I think that's the world we're moving towards. Is like eventually, it's like if you're going to go order pins from a place, right? And they'll be like, hey, and we can also do your like television buy.
Right. So you guys did this pivot, and now it's like, okay, how do we? Did you have to re-pitch to your investors or
No,
anything like that? Like any pressure points in that pivot?
yeah, I mean, the biggest pressure point was just it was more operationally. Thankfully, like there's nobody that's invested in us that doesn't have equity. So like there's nobody that's like just cares about like the cash, right?
Yeah.
So
They're not just looking at Skip going,
right.
Skip,
Yeah, exactly. Um, exactly.
get it together, man.
Right. And so, thankfully, if it's good for the company, it's good for everybody, right? And
Right.
so that was, and it makes sense. I mean, it's also easier on the pitch side too, like, right? Instead of like, we still have the software as a service, and so like
Right.
we build something that someone can buy, right? But it's like, hey, instead of paying this up front, we'll just give you this for free, and if you sell something, if you use it to make money, then it costs you something,
Right.
Does it cost you anything? So it was easier on the pitch. It was cleaner. So no, the biggest frustration was more like internally making sure that we were set up to actually execute all that stuff. And then it required us building out other things that didn't exist, like the dashboards and those things that we now have in place, where we're able to monitor. Because originally it was all built like just to predict campaigns, right?
Right.
But now
it's like now you got to track the performance.
Exactly. And so building all of those processes out was just added stuff, but that process also is now done, thankfully. So done-ish. I mean, I was never done.
It's always going to be tweaked.
You and I met yesterday, and you asked me a question about asking how like tracking, because we listen to phone calls or we track phone calls when someone calls in. You were asking, well, like, can you give any feedback on that? And it's like, well, yeah. So like we keep it sort of extending where our like involvement is, because now we're looking at adding on a tool that will even take like notes of phone calls coming in. So
That's
we can be able to say like, hey, your phone people suck, right? So it's like, not only does your display, so we can, are you getting the response from the ads you should be getting? Are you getting the response from the page you're getting? And now like, once they call in, are your salespeople doing the right thing? Like, so.
Exactly. And, putting my hat on as like the fractional CMO running Brightco. I mean, that's one of the things that we get tasked with our clients the most. That's why I was excited to hear, the evolution, because it's nowadays not just how did this ad campaign perform of return on ad spend, but we get challenged from Brightco team perspective of, well, did it convert? And we're like, well, what is your definition of conversion? Is it lead form? Because like, hey, if it goes over to a sales team and we're not looped in, I can't, I
Yeah.
don't control your sales strategy. I'm not over your sales team. We don't manage your sales enablement program to coach people. But we get blamed when stuff doesn't close
Correct.
or if there's churn. So it's not just, the they closed something and they got that first little trial, but
Right.
then people bounce. And a lot of our, the loyalty is not there. And so, we try to look at from marketing from Brightco, again, wearing that hat, that holistic kind of closed loop,
Yeah.
360 view. I know a lot of agencies don't do that, but also a lot of media companies don't offer that viewpoint of,
Right.
look, we can do the best ad campaign out there, but if you have a terrible sales team, but the fact that your tool, which I think is just incredible, the evolution of that is then you can monitor that, hand that over to whoever the sales officer is and goes, okay, I'm giving you all the ammunition.
Correct. Exactly. And it protects it. It not only protects all sides, like it keeps the sales department from being like, oh, marketing sucks, right?
Right. I
Um,
didn't get any leads or those leads
right.
sucked,
And it protects them, and it also will highlight if there is a problem. Like maybe the
Right.
marketing does, maybe you are getting the wrong kinds of leads or whatever. Like, and so it's just, it makes everything like more objective, which is kind of like, that's my jam. That's like what I'm all about, is like
That's
making
right.
things more like getting things closer to like what's actually going on. Because if it is the audience that's an issue, well, then let's switch up the audience.
Right.
Finding that out as early as possible in the process, like
It just saves time and money. And we always say, like, even when we're trying to talk to the sales team, I'm like, hey, if these message points aren't resonating,
yeah,
then we need to go back to the drawing board and look at what are those, those benefits, those attributes that we might need to test further.
right, exactly.
Because then the story, we need to rescript the stories. But if it's just bad sales techniques, well,
Yeah.
that's another,
We had a partner, we had an agency we were working with where they had a client that was basically saying they weren't getting anything from the leads. And because we do track phone calls and stuff, you go in and you look and you can see that, well, the phone wasn't being answered. So it's like, well, that's, and it's, again, it's a very objective thing of like, well, I mean, it's hard when you're not answering the phone calls to get the
right.
And so just being able to provide that data, because then the business owner was surprised to learn that, hey, as front office people aren't answering the phone.
That's right.
So,
because that's what all CEOs or CMOs, that's all they want is, am I generating the sales? Am I getting better share of wallet, or I'm increasing my margins? How do I improve on those, those 3 points?
exactly.
So are you going to shift? So your name right now is Draft Ad Technologies. Are you guys going to keep the name?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still new in the process. Or are you guys going to do another pivot?
I don't think we're going to change the name Draft Advertising Technologies. Is just we might drop as like the dots, because right now our logo is D.R.A.
Oh, okay.
So we may just drop the acronym. If anything changes, it'll be the acronym.
Well, you'll make up a new one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what we should do, actually, is so that we don't have to even change the dots. We just figure out like new things.
It's just so you're a new founder. What has been your biggest kind of like aha moments in this journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, figuring out that, oh wait, we're selling something that nobody really wants, I would say was the first oh my goodness, we need to change, right? And then figuring out it's like the ultimate nice to have, not need to have. And so that pivot of that changing from being like, oh, actually what people want really is like an easy button. And I would say that is the biggest.
You are so right.
That's the biggest aha moment, is like, wait, people don't want it. Something, it's like, yeah, I'll just make up an example. Like a nice lawnmower might make it easier for me to cut my grass, but really what I want is to not even have to think about grass. Right.
Right.
And I think that's, as much of that you can take off of your customer's plate, like whoever it is, like, I think that's the biggest aha moment, is like, if you're still a nice to have, maybe you're just not taking enough things off people's plates.
So it's that value creation.
Yeah, right.
And,
exactly.
So what's been the biggest, oh shit, like your biggest, holy crap, what have I done moment?
Well, there have been some there have been some like literal answers to that.
Yeah.
Like 1 month where I had a very hard time letting go of thing like do it
Being
past.
in the weeds.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And which is bad because like usually if you're good at like leading teams and founding and stuff, you kind of suck at the details stuff. So like went literally a month where I like forgot to invoice anybody. So, which is an issue. And so I would say that that's like one of the biggest like moments. But then, like I said, the biggest overall like more meta like oh shit moment was just realizing that our whole company is like based on a premise that I don't think anyone's willing to pay for. So let's change that.
Oh, I think I'm hitting my light back here, and it's like flexing. Sorry. It's like all of a sudden I don't think you're seeing it, but it's like this little light, like does a little spark. So Skip, so what's next for you? Like if you look at, I mean, what was your milestone? You told me after a year you guys hit what milestone?
Yeah, we crossed the 1 million mark. Our goal is, I mean, our sort of stretch goal, I'm not, the goal I would like to really hit is 5 million.
Within like end of this year or okay.
So we're not, that's different than our projection number. That's our more like if everything goes well number, but
right.
That's the number I'm trying for. That's the one I've got on my little board over here.
That's the aspirational.
Right. Exactly.
It's your BHAG, right? Your big audacious.
Right. Exactly. And so that's but even on a conservative projection, I mean, we'll be up close to 2. I mean, even if like unless just we have another oh shit moment where I forget to anybody or anything. But I don't handle my own business stuff anymore.
Is that where you had to like hire people to balance out your strengths?
Yeah, well, and what's truly tragic about that is I'd already done that, right? Like I already had the team in place. I just wasn't using them. So that's having a great team is one thing, but then not allowing them to do things is another piece of that.
So you and I had talked about this a little bit of the difference in when you leave a company, a brand that you could promote, you're a part of, you feel that culture and you feel a part of it to then now be responsible for creating a brand, creating a culture, recruiting a team, managing a team, leading a team. What's been that shift in mindset? Has it been a shift in mindset for you where you like walked into this and went, got it?
Yeah, no, it was a total, it was, I would say I went through a very, like I said, I almost went in sort of with a naivety of like, I've managed teams. I built my own department. I managed teams. I've handled P&L. That's all there is to running a business. All I got to do is do that again, right? Build a new team, build new processes, manage profit and loss. I would have said I had all of it done, like, but you realize
what was the difference?
The difference is that is doing all of that without having, like you said, culture and things like company culture and like having your own brand. I would have said didn't matter at all. Like anytime I would hear things like, "Oh, you got to have a good corporate culture, company culture," I would almost sort of eye roll at those things, and I'd be like, "Yeah, company culture." Like, but then when you lose it, you realize, oh wait, that actually does matter a whole lot. Like that's it. Now I've got to build that, or like we're just gonna be a company of assholes, right? And like realizing how much, how easy it is to go off the rails if you don't set parameters up front, like parameters of like, hey, it's okay to. Because if you think like corporate politics and those types of things are bad, like in a company, which they are in large companies, right?
Yeah.
But I would almost say it's even worse when you don't have it in small companies because you don't have the guardrails in place. And so there's even more like
chaos.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so, putting all of those things and then just, realizing like how little I know about like anything, I would say that's the biggest.
What are you talking about? What do you
Well,
mean
like
you don't know? You know a little bit.
just every now, like for example, I mean, even things, dumb things. Like I remember being 4 weeks in ish, and I bought a printer, and I literally spent like, and this is like a really embarrassing story. I probably shouldn't tell.
I could probably share 1,000 of these.
But I remember like installing this printer and it took me like 4 freaking hours to get this this printer done. Which is normally it would have just been a phone call to IT, right? Like,
Right.
so like, but instead I've spent like 4 freaking hours putting in this, and I literally almost started crying. I may have even started crying, like, because I'm just like, I can't do this. This is dumb. I don't have anybody in place. So, you have those moments as like breakdown, I guess, that just you're not
You're
expecting.
like, what have I thought? What have I done?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't build this. I can't even install this stupid printer without it taking a freaking half a day.
Do you ever get, I know I felt it, the imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah.
And I still feel it. I'm 9 years into being a founder, and shifting, from Brightco. But then even when I started Orange Whip last year, like it magnified my ignorance or just my naivety and self-confidence. I mean, it just, yeah.
Well, it's like a constant roller coaster, right? Of like being like, okay, finally I got this. And then you'll start something new. And it's like, well, never mind. I don't know. And yeah, I think being uncomfortable with like just not knowing answers to things. And then also, I get imposter syndrome a ton. And I will say one of the biggest challenges for me is like, I'm big on like making like self-deprecating jokes and those types of things.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's a good thing. And I think in a lot of ways, chances it is, but like, I realized how damaging that can be though. Like when you're the leader of a company, and I remember I said a joke, this was not even 4 months ago. So fairly recently, I was like jokingly like, and of course, we might go out of business tomorrow, that type of, like, and I mean it as a joke. I mean, we're not like some shit like would really have to go wrong for that to be the case, right?
Right.
Like there would be it would be zombie apocalypse level for that to happen, right? But like making that kind of joke when you're the leader of a team is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So like, because they got their own stuff to worry about, like, and then now the leader of the company has just been like, yeah, of course we might go out of business tomorrow. Ha 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 ha.
Right.
I know, but they don't know what the joke.
Has that been the hardest thing, is around like the culture and like building a team, or has it been in other areas?
I wouldn't say that's the hardest overall thing. That was the hardest thing that I wasn't used to at all. That was like the hardest thing that I just had no experience with whatsoever. Because when you're working for a large corporation and you're just over a part of it and you make a joke like that, everyone laughs. It's
right.
But I would say that was the biggest difference. But no, the hardest thing in general is just the stuff that everyone sort of talks about that is going to be hard, like the getting up and going and putting in a full long week when no one knows whether you did a long week or not, or putting in a long week when you I don't know, when you're always balancing that roller coaster of, oh no, we don't have enough business, with, oh no, we just got these several big orders and now we've got too much business. It's like, it seems like you're going from one fire to the other.
Right.
I'd say that is truly the hardest thing, is just the like Sisyphetic like roller coaster that it is. But it's also like what makes it awesome too. I mean, that's also the fun part of it. So
it's that bouncing back and forth.
Exactly.
So is there anything that you're putting in place for the company or for yourself that's like helping to manage that balance, or creating the balance to minimize the chaos, welcoming the chaos? Or
operationally putting in a ton basically we've made as many things as automated as possible, and we now have like true like communication practices and like in workflow, and we've got all of we're all on the same task managers and just things like that. Operationally making sure that's all set up. But then on the personal side, making sure that, well, here, I'll share my little, I've got my own little like planner that I have every day where it not only tracks like my appointments and those types of things, but also too making sure that I'm getting the right sleep, making sure I'm taking the right like
Right.
supplements, making sure I'm
Is
doing
that full
the right.
focus?
It's, I mean, no, but it's probably the same thing. This is the Unstoppable Journal, which is
Uh-huh.
probably the same thing as Full Focus, basically. It's a different
I,
flavor of the same.
I'm an adopted full focus. I've not heard of the Unstoppable Journal. Do you like it?
I do. Yeah, I like it a lot because it makes a huge difference. A dumb example is things like making sure that I'm not like that I'm not sleeping. That if I get up at like if I stay awake till like 1 or 2 a.m. working on something,
Mhm.
I kill my productivity for like the next couple of days. And just, and it doesn't matter as much if you're just riding the clock, right? Somewhere.
Right.
But when you're steering the ship, like that's a huge deal. So
Yeah.
things that I never paid attention to, I'm now starting to. So, I mean, I'd say that helps a lot. Making sure that I'm going to the gym and those types of things. I mean, I'm obviously early on that journey still, but
Aren't we all? I was telling, so I started these 7 minutes wall Pilates. I started that earlier this year. That was like my January. That was my 2023 resolution of like, okay, I'm going to do these daily 7 minutes. I can get through that's like 2 songs, like
right.
for my era of songs, not these, like,
Yeah.
I mean, or it's like one Dave Matthews,
Yeah.
like
Right. Exactly. Or a third of a Fish song.
it's one Who song.
Right.
I was like, but I can't. I have not made it past like 3 minutes. That's how sad. I'm so early in my journey. I'm like, used to be in such good shape, but I did not get that discipline early enough in my entrepreneurial journey that I'm trying to do better. But yeah, I'm at like 3 minutes.
That's solid. That's a whole like
and
standard.
then I'm out of breath. And I was like, if I can just get, so now my goal,
Taylor
just get
Swift.
through another song. Just get through or one song. So what keeps you up? You talk about sleep. What keeps you up at night?
Well, I mean, the literal answer to that, I mean, if you mean that in terms of what I'm worried, then that's a different answer. But like
Yeah.
the things that literally keep me awake at night are usually when I'm working on something. Like I get like this past weekend, I was working on this AI tool that we've added to our social media thing. That's the kind of stuff that I actually stay awake doing.
Right.
Like
you're in the weeds. You are building the
that's
product.
Often when I'm working on a campaign or when I'm doing those types of things. But I mean, in terms of the things that worry me, you never know. Like, what worries me is the constant state of like whatever could be, like whatever could happen like next month that I just don't see happening.
Right.
I would say those.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And that is kind of scary.
Exactly. And you get in these like situations where you're like, oh, I didn't know what that was. We had I got asked, we had just signed we just signed this partnership, and I got asked, hey, can you send us your liability insurance information?
You're like, what?
Yeah, like you have to describe
sure,
like what that is, like what.
And then you're like, I need to call my insurance carrier.
Right, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. Right.
Dial.
What is that? Exactly? And so, just little things like that. You just never. I would say that's the thing. Those are the things that worry me. I would say the most. It's just you never know.
Where do you tap? Like, where do you go for inspiration and resources and like where
So I'm an avid. I mean, I literally listen to. I'm dyslexic. I actually have like a hard time reading. Like I like literally. Am almost illiterate. In terms of I don't know if you like no one's ever noticed. No one ever notices. But a lot of times at a restaurant, I'll be like, hey, what do you guys have and stuff. It's because I have a hard time reading, but like literally. But I actually listen to about 7+ books, almost a book a day.
Wow.
That I listen to, and
all on business, or are these like fun? Are there most of business?
Mostly, although I will say I read a lot of spiritual books too. You know, I'm a Christian, and so a lot of it does steer that way too. But most of what I'm listening to is business books because it kind of follows like the trends in my life. Like I was powerhousing through parenting books. One of my kids were, right
Right.
around the time I was having kids, went through like a period of time there where I was having a kid a year basically, and
Been there.
and those times. So it kind of matches whatever period of life I'm in. But right now, it's almost all business books, and I there are some great business books out there.
What's your favorite? What's been your favorite, like 2 or 3 books?
The books that I would say have had the biggest impact on me, like literal impact. There's a book called Profit First, which is I would say a biggest accounting book.
Yep.
It doesn't. The title is very misleading. It's actually not about like being an asshole, right? Like it's
Right.
not, but it's about making sure that
You get paid.
correct,
Yeah.
exactly, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
It's the book that I see so many businesses. I actually had a friend of mine that was talking. It was going over. He was considering buying a franchise, and he was having me look at the books, and I was like, I don't think you're ever going to actually make money from this.
Right.
And that's the ability to know those types of things. Like, so Profit First, I'd say is a good one to read, especially if someone hasn't had like true business accounting experience, like
right.
myself. Then I would say that's a good one. I would actually recommend, not this is the Unstoppable Journal, but the book Unstoppable is actually a really good book. It does a good job of mixing health and business advice.
Okay.
Both
So,
together.
so like physical health or like mental health or
Both.
both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because to be unstoppable, you have to have all of those things.
That's right.
But because if you can't be unstoppable, and then like because even things like early on, I think I had last year I got strep throat, right, which not a big deal, right? Like it's not life threatening at all or anything,
right.
but losing a week of productivity because of something like that
kills you.
Yeah, exactly. When you, especially in the early days. So that book, I'm biased towards that one because I literally just
you just finished it.
Exactly. But then also too, I would say anything by Donald Miller, like the story brand guy.
Oh yeah.
His book, Flight Plan. Pretty sure it's called Flight Plan. I think the book is called Flight Plan. If you'll find it if you Google Flight Plan, because I know that's the PDF that you can get as a download is this Flight Plan test. But basically, thinking of a business as a plane was a really good way to think through making sure that you've got the cockpit and the engines, and the engines being sales and marketing, equal sides of the plane. Making sure that the center, the main part of it's your operations, keeping that as lean as possible, because the bigger that is, the more fuel it takes, the more sales and marketing has to work, and all that other stuff.
Right.
But that's a really good book too. Those are the ones that I think found the most. I mean, there's so many. Naval Ravikant has his almanac's really good. There's so many good ones, but those are the ones that, like, I would say structurally framed like the way we built the business.
Okay, those are good. I have not read Flight Plan, but I'm gonna go check that one out. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, what motivates you to get you out of bed in the morning?
I'd say so. Two things. Obviously there's like my obligation to my family, right?
Right.
But kind of not a great provider, right? If I'm not taking care of them. But also too, I mean, genuinely wanting to make an impact in the world. Like the entrepreneurs and things that I've found most inspiring are like the Milton Hershey and Walt Disney, and these people that actually built not just companies, but I mean, like they literally changed their lives for both employees and customers. That's the kind of impact or legacy that I think we should all be striving. I think everyone should be striving to make as large an impact in this world as they can. Good impact, an impact for good.
Right.
I think that genuinely motivates me a lot. Thinking through like, who can I help today? There's
Right.
nothing worse that I see than like when I see like a when I see like a campaign, and I'm like, well, shit, I know that's not generating a return.
Right.
It's
How can I help them?
yeah, right, exactly like that. It's heartbreaking to see those things.
I know. I
So
mean, we see, yeah, it's bad marketing and bad. It's like it's painful. It like hits you in the chest of,
right,
oh my
exactly,
gosh, we can do so much better.
right,
It
yeah,
is.
exactly.
So you want to be inspirational. What are three things that you uh, would tell other founders or entrepreneurs, advice that you would give them?
The biggest piece of advice I would say would be to be super empathetic, like constantly listening to feedback from customers and employees, so like your staff and customers. Soliciting advice, if someone, I would say that if you've got that angry or combatant client or customer or somebody, that's actually somebody you can learn a lot from, because
Right.
like, yes, they might be an asshole, but they also might be an asshole with really good advice that nobody else is telling you.
Huh.
um, and so always listening for those things, both internally and externally, like what should I change, like what should be different. um, I think that's the key to business success. And I think that's also the key. I mean, I think that also helps in life too. Like just
Right.
always being willing to listen to other perspectives and willing to put yourself in, and then being loving and kind, like, and respecting, like um, there might be crazy people, but there's no crazy person. Right. Uh,
Right.
so like,
Walk in their shoes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so radical empathy, I would say it would be sort of rule number one.
Hmm.
Um, Beyond that, being disciplined, discipline, the root word of that, disciple, means to teach. So discipline is teaching yourself, right? Like,
Hmm.
so being constantly disciplined, working on yourself, making yourself better. I always have a list of things. I literally keep a list of things that I want to change about myself. And so always looking for self-improvement. Um, the which kind of goes with the, I mean, I guess one sort of leads to the other, right? Like, you want to be empathetic so that you can learn what needs to change, and then being disciplined to work and change on those things.
Right.
Or to continue with what's going well, because there's plenty of times where you're like, things are going well, I'm bored now, let me do other stuff, right?
Right.
And that's when things fall apart. I would actually, to change an answer to what I'm worried about, that I would say is the worry part of it, is like when things are going well, you almost start to worry, like, well, are we going to stop doing the fundamentals or those types of things? Um, Being disciplined to not do that.
Right. Keep what's doing well.
Exactly.
Right.
And third piece of advice, I don't know, try to make an impact and do good things in this world. I'd say that's
it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. You can change the world right from here, right from your seat.
Exactly right.
Now, before we go, I know we're wrapping up here. I do have one other question. This might be a really off topic, because we're media nerds, and with all the craziness that's happening are you following the WGA strike at all, and how AI is impacting, and that's going to lead into SAG and IEPSA and all those other associations? Are you following any of that?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
So we might have to do another podcast just on that subject, because I want somebody to talk to about it, because I have I'm on Tumblr anonymously, and I'm not going to give out my I'm not going to dox myself there,
right.
but yeah, I write a lot about the media industry and how it's changing, and where streaming is going, and the big players, and how the strike's affecting, and just, well, and I have no one to talk about it like in real life.
Yeah, well, right. Exactly. That's the kind of thing it's a good way to leave.
I do it in like the hell side of Tumblr, where that's where I am.
I started in advertising because I was a writer at heart. I still am I still am an avid, even though I can't read hardly, like I'm still an avid writer. And so I kind of empathize more with that, just to give you sort of where I land.
Yeah.
I'm still a writer at heart. I'm still a creative at heart.
Exactly. Well, and and I'm empathetic on media and like the,
Yeah.
the content and the productions and, but then I can also look at it, go, ooh, I can see it from a founder and the CEO
Yeah.
perspective. I'm like, they're trying to get as much out of it, but at the same time, it's like, that
Yeah.
where AI could take us if they don't block it is scary.
Correct. That's the thing. It's like I can definitely see both. Like as a CEO, like your job is if you can do the same job for 10% more efficiency, you should do that same job.
Right.
It's especially if you've got shareholders and investors. That's what you do.
That's what you're charged with.
But at the same time, yeah, it's like you do want to. I don't know. There almost needs to be safeguards in place, and that's where
that's where the unions come in. They're creating those safeguards, protecting those jobs and the content producers.
Exactly.
So yeah, we'll might have to do another podcast on a different channel or something, so I can have somebody to chat with in real life, because yeah, it'll be fun. But we're out of time, Skip, and before we go, tell us how people can get a hold of you, how to look for your Draft Ed Technologies. Where do they go?
Yes, well, draftadvertising.com is our site, and as far as reaching out to me, Skip at draftadvertising.com. We'll get you right to me, and yeah, we're happy to. We specialize now, like in our pivot, we getting a specific message to a specific group of people to achieve a specific result. That's right.
Right time, right place, right audience.
Exactly.
No guesses.
That's right.
Exactly. That's the media mantra.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me, Skip. I enjoyed the conversation always. We'll have to do it again. And awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So for everyone listening or watching us live, thank you for joining us. And this podcast episode will be published this coming Sunday and available on all podcast platforms. So subscribe to Hello Chaos, like, comment, and share this great content. Help us grow and build a more connected entrepreneurial community, because Skip had a lot of good advice. People need to hear it. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities through hyperlocal online platforms. We are the megaphone for founders telling real, raw, and honest stories. Orange Whip is a one-stop content hub for a founder. It's part storyteller, part how-to guide, part navigator, with a filterable resource directory for founders, a curated events calendar, and a social media chatter wall. We are currently in 3 South Carolina markets, with our goals to expand to be in 30 cities in 5 years. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, just like Skip was, head over to orangewhip.com. Again, that's orangewip.com. Fill out that form on the Hello Chaos page, and you'll hear from us. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our weekly WHIP newsletter. We are ad-supported through sponsored native content. Our content is free, accessible, and inclusive. And our studio that allows us to produce great content is Bright Marketing. Bright is a full-service marketing and advertising agency that is the content studio for Orange Whip. Bright was founded in 2013 to support the business community in a better way. Solutions and media agnostic, strategic thinkers, sense makers, and dot connectors. Supporting growth companies across the U.S. as fractional CMOs and fractional integrated tactical execution teams. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor of Orange Whip, please email us at hello@orangewhip.com. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. Again, it's where aha meets oh shit. And I'm your host, signing off. Jake.